Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming in a new Diablo 4 video. Today we're talking current top most popular builds in the game. What is the strongest build for your class? What is the most popular in the true endgame? How do we even know? Well, Default Armory is a website that compiles the current data of active accounts. And as you can see, we can take a look at the top ranks for general categories, filtered by hardcore and softcore. You can even see that some of the highest ranking characters have actually died now, such as both Khan and Wujio's hardcore characters after hitting level 100. Now, if we manually scour this info, we could compile the current most popular builds for each class, which would take ages. But fortunate for me, this hero by the username Julian Dark posted this on Reddit, which looks to be exactly that. However, the source is the top players in each class rather than say the entire pool, which to be fair would be ridiculous to try to gather. We might need Blizzard to release those numbers if we ever want to see them in true, but with that in mind, this shows the most popular abilities and so the builds tied to them. What are the top players of each class playing? What are the most popular and therefore most powerful builds overall for each class? Starting with my main class, the Necromancer. There are a total of 382 tracked Necromancers in this upper echelon, the smallest number of the 5 classes, and of those players, 67.8% of them are using Bone Spear. An extreme, pretty clear winner compared to others we're going to talk about. Bone Spear is the build that has you reach extreme levels of crit damage while pushing your crit strike chance as high as possible to consistently smash enemies. Through that build, I'm able to rack up numbers of tens of millions while sending out various Bone Spears in the 70+ level bracket. While everyone could see this coming, what are the closest contenders for the highest ranked Necromancers currently? Well, Bone Spirit is actually only 11.52% when it's considered a sort of graduation build from Bone Spear by some due to the higher damage potential and ridiculous burst. It requires even more essence generation, mega high crit chance and damage to even work, and when working it can deal a very respectable 5 or 6 million per hit from what I've seen in videos so far. Problem is that it consumes all your essence and requires some setup every time you use it, and compared to that, Bone Spear just kind of goes. You smash them out constantly, dealing great damage immediately, buffing up with Bone Storm, grabbing targets and pulling them in with Corpse Tendrils, trapping them in Bone Prison, but just maintaining your essence with Corpse Explosion and using those cooldowns when necessary allows you to crunch higher tiers of Nightmare Dungeons with no problem. Plus, Bone Spirit by comparison and its main builds have such intense gear requirements to make it even work, where Bone Spear gradually improves and improves while working from the beginning. On the other hand, we also have the fan favorite concept, the Minion build, which as you can see in the top 382 Necromancers, they're using Raise Skeleton at a 20.94% rate, even higher than Bone Spirit. Necromancer needs more buffs in general in my opinion, some sort of survivability in the form of same ability or actual mitigation, but it needs more love for other builds than Bone Spear. This just highlights that, and I do think we'll see buffs for that soon. Next we talk Druid, the 4th most popular in these top players. These stats come from 443 tracked players. I knew going into this that Druid would come down to Pulverized Bear or the Tornado Wolf. These are the most popular builds currently. After speaking with Cotton, our resident Druid on the channel, he told me that between the two, he thinks Whirlwind Wolf is serving him much more in the true endgame. This is due to, well, as you can see, the outrageous pace that he can move through the dungeons, dropping the tornadoes and whirlwinds, moving through packs while moving on to the next thing. The movement allows him to blast to objectives, free prisoners, or find the keyholder, whatever it is, really quickly. The fact is, the game is currently all about mob clear and speed clear more than single target. So while the bear has, say, big hits and a lot of tankiness, the Tornado Wolf is just so much faster and so much better at mob clear that it takes the lead for Cotton currently. I agree with that sentiment and believe it's true, except when we talk about the outrageously high tier Nightmare Dungeons, where say at 80+ and higher tiers, survivability is going to be the #1 priority. So I could see Bear winning out there if the Wolf is having any issues surviving at that level. And that's where we now refer to the top Druid players and what they're playing, and yeah, they're playing Pulverized Bear at a 76.52% rate, even higher, 84% and higher, using Trample. These track players are indeed playing the much slower, more survivable Bear, and as I've just explained, it's probably due to the super high level Nightmare Dungeons. When you're at level 100 facing down, say, level 150 enemies with maximum affixes and minimal revives, better to be able to stay alive. The thing is, Tornado is at a shockingly low 7.9% rate, and Hurricane at the higher but still low 18.74%. Perhaps it's just the case that Tornado will see you fly through content you just don't get crunched by, but the Bear matters more at the final tiers of Nightmare Dungeons. At third place in the most track players at these higher tiers then, it's Rogues. With 533 track players, this class was the one that I expect to see a ton of during the race to World First, but I saw less than I expected. Of course, it doesn't scale as insanely high as Druid or Barbarian in endgame power, but its outrageous gameplay pace with easily the fastest leveling potential in 1 to 50, is why I'm not surprised it's still fairly popular. It's pretty straightforward, this one though. It's just twisting blades. Of course, everyone knew it was going to be twisting blades. Despite the nerfs leading to it feeling a bit more clunky, it still works very, very well. Just being able to move around the battle without committing to any trading or anything like that for a sort of melee build means you're avoiding damage through your movement. The ultimate mitigation is to just not take damage. 83.11% of the track rogue players are using twisting blades still as their core, with death trap closely being linked to that as expected at 58.91%. Other details like puncture, as it's able to constantly provide vulnerability, that makes a lot of sense at 89.31%. It's so outrageously the best choice for a basic, it's funny. And it might interest you more to know that second place seems to go to penetrating shot with its good potential, but only at a 10.51% rate. These numbers are pretty impressive, not really leaving room to suggest other meta options. And I do think as time goes on, people will begin to, experiment and branch out more as we wait for season 1 to really begin. But I am expecting further balance changes from Blizzards to make other builds more popular. Next, we have second place in the most track players, which is Sorcerers. Just above Rogues at 579 track players in the highest tiers. This one's interesting to me. Before looking at this, I asked Josh, our resident Sorcerer main, what he thought the strongest and most popular build for his class will be. He told me this. Roughly 1 to 70 is probably going to belong to the Arc Lash build as you make your way towards Torment. Then in Torment and really hitting the World Tier 4 endgame, it's going to belong to Ice Shards. But he then said, but it'll go back to Arc Lash again at the highest levels, say 90 to the full 100 and a true complete build. At that point we should expect the toughest experience, right? Trying to keep your damage high and your survivability as high as possible. The Arc Lash build then is solidly tanky for a Sorcerer, and it's an extremely mobile build, which, when we talked about with Rogues, movement is a good way to survive by avoiding damage. And its damage is extremely strong as long as it gets the chance to get going. It's just that it does have a quite close range fighting style, which is a concern. So with that in mind, Arc Lash stands at just 27.63%, while Ice Shards has a whopping 64.25% pick rate among those top sorcerers currently. Perhaps this is by comparison a build that plays more at range compared to Arc Lash being up close. That in itself means it's safer to pilot when we consider the highest Nightmare Dungeon tiers again. It has bursty damage for popping targets, and it's still solidly mobile in general. There's also the potential chill and freeze that can't be understated either. Consistent CC that can slow or even hard stun is again another form of ultimate mitigation. The enemy's not dealing any damage if it can't move. True control of the fight is vital at these ridiculous Nightmare tiers though, and maybe that's why they're leaning more on Ice Shards than Arc Lash currently. Last but not least then, it's time to finally talk Barbarian. This makes complete sense to me. From the beginning, everyone was talking about how Barbarians are going to have yet the worst early game leveling experience, but their end game is clearly going to be the strongest. 593 Barbarians are tracked here, and in my opinion, it's going to come down to the insanely powerful Hammer of the Ancient builds, and of course the monster Whirlwind build that has been target nerfed now. I'd expect Hammer of the Ancients to take over from Whirlwind post-nerf, because while its AoE isn't as wide-reaching or maybe for as consistent clear, its damage is clearly insane. I've watched some footage from Rob2628 here, in which he's hitting tens of millions per hit using the hammer, which is crazy. But again, another unexpected twist. Of the top 593 Barbarians, 84.15% of them are still using Whirlwind, to an overwhelming majority. So only 14.5% are using the hammer now, but it is an interesting reveal to see so many still using Whirlwind. I guess it really is still just the king of mob clear, and that really is what the game is about right now. If it's the most efficient of that, it's the top pick, I guess. It's just interesting to see how little variation there is in Barbarians as a whole. 92% are using Lunging Strike for their basic, and the cries, the buffs, they're all the same too. 96% are using Challenging Shout, 99.83% are using Rallying Cry, and again, War Cry, 98.99%. Next to nobody is using anything else but these. They're just simply too good for solo and group play, I guess. But there you have it. A look at the numbers for the top track players on D4 Armory currently. Again, a big thank you to Julian Dark who shared these stats. This information is very interesting and I was keen to learn. Though I would love to see more from Blizzard to release, say, the true numbers of the population at large, to reveal what the true most popular class is and what the most popular builds are overall. Let me know what you think, and if you can reason out what we've looked at today in any interesting ways. For now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.